Let's talk some UVA basketball recruiting. Chris Graham here on the podcast and catching folks up here on the flurry of activity in the last few days on the UVA basketball transfer portal front. All positive news after 6 or 8 weeks, depends on how long you want to date it, of discontent among the fan base. Tony Bennett's done pretty good for himself. And we'll talk some more later in the week, kind of do a roster breakdown and some more. But let's start with where things began on Saturday. So we're recording this on May 8th, Wednesday, so a few days ago now. The first pickup from the portal was Florida State junior guard Jalen Worley. And Worley, being a guard who can play point guard, played a lot of point guard at Florida State the last 3 years, former top 50 recruit. He's a big guy for a guard, 6'7", 205. I remember seeing him at the ACC tournament. I'm there for the early games. I'm there for every game, and saw him in a couple of games there. The Virginia Tech game in the second round, and then the quarterfinal round game against UNC. And I remember thinking, wow, I'm kind of impressed with this kid. I didn't imagine that 2 months later he'd be committing to come to play at Virginia. Now, there are positives and negatives, as with everybody. He can initiate the offense, 2.8 assists per game this past season, but he's not much of a threat from the perimeter, and that's being generous. 23.8% on jumpers, only attempted two three-point shots in 2022 or 2023, 2024, and defensively rated below average. Now, I'm going to factor that out. Florida State, nothing against Leonard Hamilton and the way he approaches things. It's not like there's a lot of structure there. It doesn't seem like to me. Hamilton kind of just gets great athletes and throws them at you in waves. And so I would assume that Worley, when he gets into the UVA system, will it'd be a great, with his length and his height, he will be a really great factor on defense for Virginia, the pack line. On the offensive end, take advantage of the fact that he gets a lot of his shots at the rim. Of his roughly 200 shots, about 75% of them were at the rim. Uh, and so, I like this kid as an addition to the backcourt. He'll be a very athletic addition, and he'll really fit in well when we talk about how big this team is a little later on. Let's go to the next two guys. The biggest guy off the portal in terms of additions, and I guess actually probably literally too, at 6'9", TJ Power, the former five-star recruit just last year, class of 2023. He had Virginia in his finalist group when he came out of high school, before deciding to play at Duke. And then John Shire, folks even there say mismanaged his minutes. He only got 7 minutes a game, 26 game appearances, quite a few DNPs. But Power, after that disappointing, frustrating for him season at Duke, decided to transfer out. Looked like he was headed to Boston College, but then decides on Monday to come to Virginia. Um, didn't get You can't really glean a lot out of his season last year. He didn't get a lot of minutes. A lot of those minutes that he did get were garbage time minutes. After going to the scouting reports from his prep days, his five-star designation was about his athleticism, his three-point shooting, his defense, his passing. He's regarded as a plus passer, and so he'll be in the mix, to say the least. He'll be in the mix. He'll start for Ryan Dunn at the 4 spot, and he'll be an improvement on the stretch four, stretch five concept of Jake Groves and Ben Vanderplas from a couple of years ago, because those guys, great three-point shooters. Groves, a borderline great three-point shooter. Vanderplas, a good three-point shooter for a big guy. But that's pretty much what they could do on offense. This Power kid can get himself to the rim. He can get himself to the mid range, and he can score from the perimeter. And so he should be, and also a passer off the perimeter as a big guy. You can see over top of the defense. Should be a very valuable addition to this Virginia team as a five-star, first five-star, and at top he was number 19 in his class. He's now one of three top 50 recruits on this roster, along with um, Jalen Worley. He was a former top 50 recruit, and then also Elijah Gertrude, a freshman coming back for his sophomore year next year. So very exciting to have TJ Power in the mix here. And then also Monday night, another big man coming off the portal, San Diego State power forward Elijah Saunders. When you see the numbers for him, his height and weight, 6'8", 240. I said this to somebody when I was talking yesterday. I'm envisioning Junior Burrow, and nothing against Junior Burrow, but Junior Burrow was also 6'8", roughly 240. Uh, Big guy, a little bit of baby fat around him. None of that was Saunders. He looks like 6'8", 240 of cable and wire all wrapped together. And he's a stout guy. Think Jordan Minor. Minor was listed at 6'8", 242. So a guy that in Minor that was used to body up to the big guys in the ACC defensively. And Saunders can do that. We'll talk about that in a second. But Saunders also brings with him the ability to hit from three. He connected on 32.2% of his threes this past season. And another number jumps out at me that tells me I think there's a higher ceiling than 32.2%. He was 96% at the line this past season. So that tells me that he's got a pure shot, and it's just a matter of cleaning up the looks maybe to get that percentage even higher. Um, and defensively, this kid is he rated as excellent. Synergy Sports rated him as excellent on the defensive end last season, holding opponents at 30.2% shooting, 0.75 points per possession. Um, I'm thinking that Saunders and Power both start in the front court next year. I think that those two guys, the addition of those two guys, probably pushes Blake Buchanan, the four-star recruit from the 2023 class, who played as a freshman at UVA this past season. I think it pushes him back to the bench. Honestly, I think Saunders is too good to keep out of the starting lineup defensively and offensively, and then CJ Power is just too good in general to keep off the floor. So unless Tony Bennett goes with, let's say, Power as a really big three in his offense, then goes with Isaac McNeely at two. I'm kind of jumping ahead here a little bit to the podcast I'm doing tomorrow. But I think unless he does that, I think that you're going to see those two guys starting and Buchanan off the bench for Virginia. There was then one more bit of portal news in the front court. A guy who apparently is going to walk on, Carter Lang, a former St. Anne's Belfield big man who went to Vanderbilt as a 3-star. There was one rating service that listed him as a 4-star. I'm going with 3-star because the bulk of the rating services had him as that. But a 6'9", 235-pound kid from Charlottesville who went to Vanderbilt as a freshman, didn't play a lot there. Started a few games, ended up off the bench, ended up kind of being a guy that was left in the sort of on the bench, out of the rotation. Got quite a few did not plays, coaches' decisions as Jerry Stackhouse finished up his last season at Vanderbilt. But he's coming in now, and again, apparently, at least for now, as a walk-on. So that keeps one scholarship open for Tony Bennett to use. We'll see how he may or may not use that. He may end up giving it to Carter Lang if nothing else materializes off the portal here. But Lang is a guy that is more of a project. He's more of a depth guy. Guy who can shoot out to 12 to 15 feet. He's a good rebounder, not very athletic. But a guy again, I mean, he's a guy that has talent. He has some skills, and he can definitely be a factor for this Virginia program. So, going into, let's say, Saturday, certainly there was nobody coming off the portal. Virginia was very much in need of some big guys. That question is answered with the three additions in the front court. And again, I think Tony Bennett picked up a starting front court and then a potentially valuable bench guy from the front court from the last couple of days. And then love Jalen Worley, the potential more than what we've seen from him at Florida State, but a guy at 6'7" with length. The starting, not just the starting, the roster now, the rotation now is going to have nobody smaller than 6'4" among the rotation guys. You got three guys who contend for the point guard job at 6'4", and you'll go into the post with big burly and a couple big physical guys in the front court. So 6'7", 6'6" guys in the backcourt as well. So, I mean, this looks and feels like a team right here. I'm going to tell you, and I'll go into more detail about that tomorrow in a podcast. And these stories are all, by the way, on AugustaFreePress.com already. If you go to AFP, and I'll link to it from both the YouTube link for those who follow us there, on the podcast link through Podbean. And so you can, if you've missed those stories to this point, you'll be able to access those. But in any case, I really like this team all of a sudden. So if you have any questions for me, any mailbag items for me, any suggestions maybe for things to look into, either column-wise, any news tips, anything like that, feel free to email me at chris@augustafreepress.com.